straight into the Super League news then. Biggest story. It's not reached the main media yet, I don't think. It's been more on the fan forums, especially at the Wire, Warrington Wolves. Sam Burgess imminently due to pen a 3-year deal. It's not been leaked into the media yet. It's not been covered by Sky Sports, but I think it's well and truly on its way. How do you? I asked you this question last week. How do you rate him? Do you think he deserves the 3-year extension? And can he be the one to get them over the line, the Warrington Wolves?
Well, it's continuity for the club. It's continuity which they haven't had in the previous coaches.
Yeah.
I think he's done a decent job. Yeah, I don't think he's been dealt a brilliant hand. The owners are always willing to put their hands in the pockets. I think Brodie Croft signing is a big one. They've got Erwin, who's a brilliant young half coming through. Hayes is in there as well. Kai Taylor at fullback. So. Danny Walker at 9. They've got a spine there for the next few years as well. So, I was with TalkSport at the weekend, and we listened to Sam and his pre-match before Castleford last week, and he said, "I've agreed it. I've just not signed it. Yeah. My handshake's as good as, so I won't be going back on the deal." So I think the deal's done. It's just not as you said, not reached the mainstream media, and it's a decent move for the club. I think it gives them continuity.
Yeah, it's because I feel like, looking out of the Warrington fans' eyes, they were probably looking at it thinking, the Perth job, obviously Mal Meninga got it. I'm pretty sure Sam would have chucked his hat in the ring for that one. PNG job, obviously Willie Peters got it. Do you feel like he's sticking around purely because the opportunity in the NRL isn't there yet?
No, I think Dan, that is still a relatively young coach.
Yeah.
He's not. This is his first head coach's job. He didn't do too long as an assistant before he got this head coach's job. Yeah. He ended acrimoniously at Sal's because of his principles and morals, which I'm all for, by the way.
Yeah.
He had a fallout with Jason Demetriou by all accounts. So I just think he should spend more time as a head coach and cut his teeth and make sure he can make mistakes. I think the big one this year for Warrington will be who they employ as an assistant with Steve McNamara going, because I think Steve's been good for him from what he's said and what I've heard on the grapevine. So I think he'd be at Warrington for the next couple of years, maybe 3. It depends how well they go and what other jobs come up. But there's no question he's got ambition to go back to Australia and coach in the NRL. And I don't think there's anything wrong with him saying that.
I don't want anyone to get me wrong, by the way. I love Sam Burgess, loved him as a player. The reason I prod these questions towards you, Paul, is because he was such a sensational player on such a high pedestal. He's always going to be criticised and scrutinised a lot more harshly than maybe a Rowley would have been at St Helens. That's no disrespect to Paul Rowley, but because of his stature in the game as a player, and you then come into it, it doesn't always transpire as being an impressive player to an incredible coach. It doesn't always work. So I feel like that's why I put the questions towards you.
Yeah.
But we'll wait and see. Wait for the news to be announced and see how well it go over the next 2 or 3 years. The next piece of news: Kai O'Donnell potentially returning to the Lee Leopards. Currently with the North Queensland Cowboys, we all know how good of a stint that he had at the Lee Leopards first time around. I think it was something like 38 tries in 43 games, I think it was, as a back rower, in sensational figures. But he's only made 5 appearances for the Cowboys this season, and his last one was back in round 7, a defeat to Manly. His contract is also expiring with the Cowboys at the end of the season, so I feel like it should happen. The feedback I've got from the Lee Leopards fans is they want him yesterday. They want him back. That's how highly they rate him.
He's on his way. Listen, Dan, I can hear the plane just going over my house now. Aaron Penny has been released from his deal. That frees up the quarter spot. Kai O'Donnell's on the flight over, I believe. The club's just not announced it yet. But I put on social media last night that Lee Leopards making changes. One thing with Derek Beaumont at Lee is if there's a player to be had and he's got the space, he will go get him.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want a Challenge Cup win 3 years ago to be the last of. He wants to
No.
make grand finals and he wants to play in big games. He wants to win everything every year, every game. And he'll do whatever it takes. And Kai O'Donnell
Yeah.
fits that nicely. I think
Yeah, he
what you
does.
got with him on that left edge and Lockie Lamb, he'll slot straight back in. I think as Holton got injured, I think Frankie Holton's got an injury,
Yeah.
which has seen him out for the rest of the year now.
Well, you've also got Owen Trout leaving as well. He's been playing a bit of back row for them. He's going to the Cronulla Sharks.
He's right edge back row, isn't he? So I think O'Donnell comes straight into the left edge.
Yeah, there was just before we move on, there's a couple of things on Kai O'Donnell. The first one was before, obviously, we found out before we come on air that Aaron Penn had left. I generally thought he was going to stay on. I didn't think he'd be the one that would be cut. The second part was Derek Beaumont had a very fractured relationship with Kai O'Donnell's agent. So I thought, was he going to throw, like obstacles in the way of Derek getting the deal done? But it seems like that, like you said, that they've sorted and ironed out whatever it was.
When you've only played 5 games of NRL since you went back, I think the agent's got to hold his hand up and Kai O'Donnell and say it's not working out for him.
Yeah.
And it certainly did at the Lee Leopards. I know Derek has fractured relationships with agents. Agents are 10 a penny, aren't they? There's that many of them. They're all trying to do the best by the client. They're all trying to get the best percentage for themselves with a higher offer. So, I can understand that with Derek. He's a stickler for holding a grudge at times, and rightly so. And rightly so when it comes to spending his money.
Mean, he did make 17 or 18 appearances for the Cowboys last year, but it just seems to be this year he's just not fancied. I don't know why. He's been named as the reserve a couple of times in most recent weeks, but it just seems like you say, he's out the door. He must be on the plane already, and that's music to Lee Leopards fans' ears. Next piece of news coming from out of the NRL as well is Daniel Tupou, who we both rate highly. He's considering a Super League move. They've not named which clubs could be obviously retaining his services, but it doesn't look like the Roosters are willing to give him another deal, and which is baffling to me because how much we've raved on about how good his try scoring ability is, how good in the air he is, unless they know something that we don't.
Well, that was my next comment. There's something going on at that club that we don't know about in terms of training, whether he's had to cut training because of his age or any injuries. Whether he's struggling to train daily, make sure he makes every session. There'll be something in there, and with all due respect at the NRL, there's a new player waiting to come and take your spot very quickly. There's that many players, the player pool's that big. So if it does come over here, I can see it Catalan, possibly, depending on... I know John Cartwright's asked Nick Cottridge and Lewis Dodd and a number of other players to let him know if they're going to be leaving the club because they've got other business to do. So maybe there, I think see maybe south of France. I'm not sure he'd be used to a cold winter in the north of England. Daniel Tupou, having spent so long at the Roosters, and he may well have a chat with Jared Warrior-Hargreaves in terms of what it's like in the north of England. So I know them two are really close. So it'd be interesting to keep an eye on that one.
Yeah. Next one, also coming out the NRL, current St. George Illawarra Dragons front rower Blake Lawrie, linked with the Bradford Bulls and the Catalan Dragons. He's another one as well where he's played, I think he's made something like 130, 140 first grade appearances for the Dragons. He's a very well experienced front rower, but as of late he has dropped out due to how many great young forwards that are coming through at the Dragons. He's not getting as much game time. So the Bradford Bulls seem to be the front runners, and speaking to their fans, they are desperate for another kind of alpha leader to come through, and he ticks all the boxes. He's a very good front rower. Where do you think?
I think it'd be a good move, Dan. I think it'd be a good move for Bradford particularly. One thing I know with the list that Kurt Haggerty's released on players is there's half a dozen of them that are decent players, good players. So they must have irons in the fire that they know that's coming over the line. And Blake Lawrie fits that. I think the injury to Ryan Sutton last week, calf injury, I'm not sure how bad that is, but we hope it's not as severe as his other injuries, certainly over 2024 and 25. and I don't think it will be. But they certainly need some more grunt up front for them. Some more nastiness and some more sort of punch and power. So Blake Lawrie fits that.
Yeah, he does. I think he'd be a phenomenal signing for the Bulls. Exactly what they need. Last piece of news to round out the Super League news segment. Ravalawa sent on loan to Doncaster for the rest of the season from the Castleford Tigers, and it was literally less than 12 months ago. He was running out for the St. George Dragons in the NRL. I mean, how is he fallen so far down the order?
It's not, Matt, I say this a lot, Dan. It's not easy to come over from Australia and play in the Super League. It's not easy because of the weather. It's not easy because of the ground conditions. It's not easy because you're so far away from home where you've been all your life, and it's difficult. I went to Doncaster on Sunday, as daft as it sounds. I had a busy weekend. My partner was working, and I decided to go watch the game against Oldham. He's got an error in him, and that doesn't cut it in Super League. He's made a couple of serious errors in Super League, a couple of non-attempts at catches, and it just doesn't look good. When you're paying somebody so much money, they've got to be one of the best players on the field. I think Ryan Carr's got a heck of a lot of problems at the club with regards to individuals that are just not pulling weight and are not earning the salaries of the contract that they're on, and Ravalawa's been one of them. So he was good at Doncaster, by the way. He didn't do anything overly wrong. They won comfortably against a team in Oldham who have won 13 straight games or something like that. So it was a big win for them, and he was a part of that. But I mentioned a Cas fan, and he asked how he went, and I said I still don't think he displaced his senior or Tyler Sharp, who played his debut at the weekend, or Gary if he comes back in. I still don't see Ravalawa as replacing one of them.
Castleford has also announced Tyrell Sloan, and they've also announced Matt Feeney, who both can play on the wing. It's looking likely that Sloan will probably play fullback.
I think Tyrell Sloan comes in to play fullback. I think
fullback. I do think, but he can play out on the wing.
To Cass, because you've got PLT there, Phoenix Lower guy, and you've got players at the club that are playing position. It's difficult for Ryan Carr because he probably wants to turn that squad around in a massive way, but you've got players on contracts. One, you have to pay them off. Two, you've got to find them another club. Three, you may need some of them players, so you've got to be careful of bagging them all the time. In 2027. So it's a difficult job for Ryan, but coaching's not an easy job in any sport, let alone in rugby league and the Super League.
Yeah, no, I agree. Before we move on from the Super League news, actually, one thing's just come back to me. We did touch on him earlier. Jack Welsby. I know you mentioned that he could potentially be going to Wigan, and the timeline fits. Do you see, before we move on, do you see that move happening from a personal point of view, and do you think that he would meet the Wigan standard? Do you think he would?
I don't think he meets Wigan standard now, and I think he will readily admit that. I think he's already mentioned that in another podcast. I think what was interesting about that podcast is the way he referenced some of the wordage and people from Wigan. So the identity comment, which was what Matt Pete's comment. And then he mentioned Sean Wayne's giving him a great piece of advice at some point. And then, he's a Wigan lad and he's off contract at the same time as Field's off contract. Listen, if you're asking me to choose between Welsby and Field right now, I'd choose Field. Yeah, but that might not be Wigan's choice.
No, I don't think it will be.
With all due respect, it may not be Wigan's choice. Now I'll ask you this: I can see it happening because of all them things aligning, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. But Jack may need to go to another club and a champion club to go back to being an international, because I'm not sure. Right now, I would pick AJ Brimson as fullback, and I wouldn't take him to the World Cup.
Well, you've also got
take Jack Welsby in the form he's in.
You've also got Ollie Ashall-Bott when he's fit. He's every bit as good.
I don't think he goes either. I think they would. If they take two specialist fullbacks, then I think that's a bit of a waste of a player in the squad. I think you can get away with playing a half that can play fullback, like Mikey Lewis did last year, although it didn't go real well. So he may decide to take two. Jake Connor can slot in there. Yeah,
he played at Huddersfield for them.
Form than him. So if you're asking me if Jack's an international player right now, no. But there's nothing to say that in a champion environment like Wigan.
No.
that the coaching staff may see fit. Bear in mind, they tried to sign him previously. I said this earlier. They tried to sign him
Yeah,
previously. He's a Wigan lad.
yeah,
The other one, he didn't celebrate his try in front of the Wigan fans when he
yeah,
has done in previous seasons. I
yeah,
just
yeah,
think there's something in the water. I'm not. I may be completely wrong, but listen, I've been around in the game long enough to have an opinion and understand why I'm having the opinion, and be
yeah,
big enough and man enough to hold my hands up and say I was
yeah.
wrong.
Well,
So
I've not
I just
that.
feel that he will leave the club because I don't think Saints are going to be as big a team in this competition because I think the last 2 or 3 years of recruitment has set them back 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So
The last bit on that is I've not watched that full podcast appearance that he made recently. I've only watched snippets of it,
I have it
but
too. I've not
but
watched it fully yet.
the clips that are seen was it did seem like a bit of a sales pitch, like "Hello, Matt Pete, hello, Wigan Warriors, come and get me," kind of thing, and that's what some of the comments
Danny,
seem
I
to
think
be.
it was. I think the questions were carefully questioned,
Yeah,
and the answers were carefully answered. I'm just
yeah,
trying to delve deeper, and it's a fascination of mine. I try and
yeah,
get into the mind of someone. I don't know why. It's just a fascination. But
yeah,
the other one is what will be interesting is if St Helens sanction that.
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
I'm not sure with the current predicament that club's in that I would sanction one of my players to go onto a podcast and reveal as much as he revealed.
No, no, it was quite.
I just think right now with the noise coming out of that club, I would try and stop the noise going out. So if Jack's
Yeah,
gone and done that off his own back, which I think he probably has, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'm speculating. It's my opinion, but there's no
yeah.
way on the planet if I'm the media manager or the head coach at that club
No,
that
you sign off on that.
I allow Jack Welsby to go and give a podcast talking about the standards at the club and the coach leaving and best
Yeah,
pieces of advice and and it wasn't at St Helens, it wasn't at his house, it was at his old amateur club.
yeah.
It just
But
baffled.
it
It
just
just something just
it
doesn't
just
add up.
it just adds to the circus as what has been at
But
Saints
listen,
this
Dan,
year.
he's out of contract as of November 1st. He can speak to other clubs. So
Yeah,
it
yeah,
may be his way of putting pressure on St Helens, which is all well and good, by the way. This is what's fascinating about professional sport and contract negotiations is my dad
yeah,
described them as let the poker begin.
yeah.
Let the
No,
poker
agree.
begin. Let's see who keeps the cards close to the chest. Let's see who reveals a bit more. It's a fascinating time for a professional player when you go into contract negotiations.
Yeah, I completely agree. We wait and see where he ends up. Then we wait and see if Saints are willing to offer him a new deal, or whether he goes to Wigan or somewhere else like Hull or Catalan. We don't know.
But if
But
you go to
it was
Hull or
pretty.
Catalan, Dan, if you go to Hull or Catalan, with all due respect, your international honours go down further down the pan.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. But speaking from devil's advocate again, Sam Tompkins, he played out of the Wigan Warriors. He left and he was still playing,
Yeah, but he
internationally.
went
And
to a Catalan Dragons who won a Challenge Cup
yeah,
and
yeah,
made a
they
grand
did.
final.
They did.
I don't
I,
see that and Hull FC, them and Hull FC doing that.
they have recruited quite well though. To be fair, Catalan with Hull, I'm not sure. It's going to take we're going to touch on them shortly, and I'm sure you'll have your say on them. There needs to be a lot of change there. But yeah, it's a tough one. We'll wait and see where he ends up. But that wraps it up for the Super League news this week. Let's get straight into Super League Round 21 results and analysis. If you enjoyed this segment, the full 90-minute podcast with all 5 segments is linked below, where we discuss the latest Super League and NRL news and results, plus the bonus segment of Question Cookie each week. Don't forget to subscribe, click the bell icon to be notified of all future content uploaded by NRL Insight UK. Thank you for your continued support, and see you on the next one.